Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. We are waiting for a few more participants to join. We will be starting soon, sir.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. I'm here.
Yes. Okay.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Angula ma'am. I welcome you all to the second session of day 3. And we have Professor Dr. Sandeep Shastri, sir, the Honorable Vice Chancellor from Jagran Lakes University. The moderation of this particular session shall be done by Ms. Angula Bhutia, Assistant Professor, School of Law, Jagran Lake City University. So we'll wait for a couple of more minutes, and we have people in the waiting room joining the session. So we'll just take Angula ma'am. We'll start by 4:30. I'll give you a hint, and then we can start.
Sure, sir.
So the material that you shared has already been shared with the group. Please do let us know when you require the breakout rooms. Angula ma'am, we are good to go.
Okay, sir. I hope I'm audible, sir.
Ma'am, you are audible.
Okay. Good afternoon to one and all present here. I, Ongmula Bhutia, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, Jagran Viksit University, Bhopal, on behalf of the organizing team, would like to welcome our speaker for today's session, Professor Dr. Sandeep Shastri, Vice Chancellor, Jagran Viksit University. I would also like to welcome our dear participants on day 3, session 2 of the 15 days online refresher course. Before I hand over the session to our speaker, I would like to introduce Before I hand over the session to our speaker, I would like to introduce Dr. Shastri to you all. Dr. Sandeep Shastri is currently the Vice Chancellor of Jagran Viksit University, Bhopal, with close to 4 decades of experience in the fields of research and teaching. Dr. Shastri is a political scientist who has been the Pro Vice Chancellor of Jain, a deemed to be university for over a decade, Director of the Research and Training Wing of the Jain Group of Institution for 5 years, and a faculty in the Department of Political Science at Bangalore University for 2 decades. His research has largely been in the field of electoral studies, federalism, political processes and institution, and the teaching learning process. He is the co-chair of the research committee of the International Political Science Association that focuses on public opinion research. He is the national coordinator of the Lokniti Network, an all India network of social scientists involved in survey-based election and opinion studies. Dr. Shastri has authored over 30 books, more than 50 chapters in edited books, and more than 100 articles in reputed research journals. As a political commentator, he has written more than 350 articles in English, Kannada, and Hindi in renowned newspapers and online portals. He is an election and political analyst for India Today TV and appears frequently on CNBC, News 18, and Republic TV. Dr. Shastri is a consultant to the UNDP and was involved in the political party reforms project in the Pacific Rim countries. He has been a consultant to the World Bank for its governance reforms project in Nepal. He is a senior advisor to the Forum of Federation and its lead consultant in political transition in Myanmar, constitutional reforms in South Sudan, and federal processes in Sudan. Dr. Shastri has lectured at universities in over 50 countries in all the 6 inhabited continents. In his career, he has been a Southport Foundation Fellow, Salzburg Seminar Fellow, Indo-Canadian Fellow, International Visitor Program Fellow. Dr. Shastri was privileged to play a key role in drafting Karnataka's youth policy by serving as the chairman of the drafting committee of the said policy. Dr. Shastri prefers to describe himself as a teacher by instinct, researcher by choice, trainer by passion, and above all, a lifelong learner. Sir, it has always been a pleasure listening to you, and I know today's session will definitely going to be as fruitful as it has always been. With this, I request Sir to kindly address the gathering. Thank you so much, Sir.
Thank you, Angula. It's always a pleasure when a colleague introduces you, especially when she does not simply read out a script, but says it with all feelings. So thank you for that. But as Ongmula was reading out my presentation, I was reminded of a small story which somebody told me once, which I would like to share with you all. This is a story of a fellow teacher like you and me, who was one day walking down the corridors of his university. And in his department, everybody turned to him and wished him and said, good morning, sir. So he was very happy that people acknowledge me in my department. He happened to go to another department in the afternoon, and there also people were wishing him, good afternoon, sir, good afternoon. So he said, not only am I well known in my own department, I'm also well known in other departments. That evening, he went for a walk in a park, and he took a long walk and felt tired at the end of the walk and decided to sit down in one corner. Now, his amazement was, even as he sat in that corner, when anybody passed him, they used to wish him. Anybody who passed him did namaste to him and went on. So he was shocked. In my university, everybody knows me, but how does everybody know me in this park? I did not know I was so famous that in this park also everybody recognizes me. Finally, the curiosity took the better of him, and he stopped one person and said, look, I know I am famous, but how did you come to know me? How did you know about me? That man looked at our professor and said, sir, I don't know who you are, but you know where you are sitting? You are sitting below the statue of Mahatma Gandhi. And everybody was saluting Gandhi and passing. And if you thought they were saluting you, that's your decision. Now, as Ongmula was saying all those nice things, I was reminded of this story. Why? In my 40 years of teaching, if I have learned anything, I have learned it because of the wonderful students and colleagues that I have had around me. My students have been my best teachers, and my colleagues have been my best supporters. So if I get joy in this world of teaching, learning today, it's because of all of them. And friends, that's what I wanted to share as part of this session. 48 hours ago, I was with you all. And that day I remember requesting everybody to switch on their videos, and I hope people will do that today. And I want to make today's session 50% my talk, 50% your talk. And let's see if we can do that before 6 o'clock today. And what's my theme? My theme is that, how do I make my classroom interactive? Dr. Balchand, I'll start with one point. Negiji, is our classroom a place for teaching or is our classroom a place for learning? हिंदी में ये बहुत अच्छा लगता है सर. सीखना या सिखाना, एक ई की मात्रा का फर्क है. सीखना का जगह सीखने का जगह है या सिखाने का जगह? नेगी जी क्या कहेंगे आप? सीखने का जगह है या सिखाने का जगह है? नेगी जी शायद अपने आप को अनम्यूट नहीं कर सकते. किसी और को अगर मैं पूछूं, ये सीखने का जगह है या सिखाने का जगह है? प्रिया जी. नेगी जी बोलिए. आई विल कम टू प्रिया इन अ मोमेंट. नेगी जी बोलिए.
सीखने का है हर पहलू. हम विद्यार्थी से भी सीखते हैं और किसी प्रकार के वर्कशॉप.
तो सर जैसे आपने किया, मैं प्रिया को आपके पास अभी आऊंगा. जैसे नेगी जी ने कहा, ये 21वीं सदी का क्लासरूम सिखाने का क्लासरूम नहीं है सर. मेरे विचार में ये सीखने का क्लासरूम है. सिखाना हो तो बच्चा इंटरनेट पे भी जाके सीख सकता है. हम सब जब साथ में सीखते हैं, वो एक मतलब वो सीखने में आ जाता है. प्रिया, यू वांटेड टू ऐड समथिंग?
हम सबसे पहले.
Yes sir. I just want to say the same thing, that learning is more important than the teaching, because
while we are teaching. Who is the first learner in a classroom, Priya?
Yes sir.
Who is the number one learner in the classroom?
Maybe teachers.
Very true. Not maybe, definitely. The number one learner in our classroom is you and me.
Yes.
प्रिया, आप बोलिए, हर एक बार जब आप क्लास से बाहर आती हैं, आपको लगता है कुछ सीखा मैंने?
जी सर. और सर मैं हर बार सोचती हूँ मैंने कुछ डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट में भी सीखा. हमेशा टीचिंग एस्पेक्ट में ही नहीं सीखा सर. कभी सोशल एस्पेक्ट में भी सीखा, कभी इमोशनल एस्पेक्ट में भी सीखा.
बहुत खूब, बहुत खूब. इसलिए क्लास खत्म होने के बाद 2 मिनट अगर मैं बैठ के कुछ लिख लूं क्लास के बारे में, हर क्लास के बारे में, काफी अच्छा रहता है. बाद में जब हम पढ़ते हैं उसे, हाँ ये मुझे याद आया, इस क्लास में मैंने ये, बच्चों ने ये बताया, मैंने ये बताया. कभी कभी जो हम प्लान करते हैं उसको छोड़ के हम क्लास में बात करते हैं. प्लान के मुताबिक कभी क्लास नहीं जाती. अनीता मैम, क्लास के मुताबिक, प्लान के मुताबिक हमेशा क्लास गई है आपकी?
No sir.
क्यों प्लान ही नहीं किया आपने?
No sir, I always used to be on track, but sometimes it happens that I have to do something different.
True. Sometimes because you want to do something different, sometimes because the kids want you to do something different.
Yes.
Both the aspects. So let me, and we are going to do a little group work today later in my session. So let me clearly focus on what is the theme that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to discuss with you what I will call a paradigm shift. A paradigm shift means a shift in a whole focus, a shift in a philosophy. shift in a perspective, shift in a thinking, shift in an approach. Because 21st century learning requires a learning approach and not a teaching approach. And what are the issues in this change I will talk about. I encourage everybody to look at my slide now. Left hand side is teaching paradigm. Right hand side is learning paradigm. Look at the differences that are there between what is on the left and what is on the right. Shaili, what is on the left? First one.
Provides or delivers instruction.
So Shaili, when you went to class, teacher told you, today I will teach you this, today you will learn this, take down. And what did you do?
So I try to understand what teacher is telling me, and I try to apply that in my practical learning, that how can I use it.
Very true. But look at the right side now. Classroom is not to deliver instructions. Classroom is to produce an environment of learning. Look at point 1 and 2. I'm not teaching a BLLB course. I'm not teaching a public policy course. I'm not teaching a financial management course. I'm providing a learning environment in which the student is able to, on her own or on his own, think about learning environment, think about cyber law, think about the topic that I am supposed to talk to him or her about.
Yes, sir.
Sarita ma'am, what is your subject, Sarita ma'am?
Sir, it's business law. I teach business law in Commerce College.
Sorry, you teach?
Business law, sir. It's contract act and all related commercial.
So in your contract law classes, are your classes faculty centered or learner centered?
I actually try to, involve my learner also.
Yeah. Do you sometimes start your class by asking your kids, what do we do today?
Very rarely, sir. Very rarely, because we have that syllabus and we have to, fulfill. So very rarely we start with that.
How important is that syllabus, ma'am? Vallabh sir, how important is that syllabus when we are teaching? Sir, आपको unmute करना पड़ेगा. Sir, unmute करिए please. Vallabh sir, unmute करिए. Vallabh sir, आपकी बात सुनाई नहीं दिया. आपको unmute करना पड़ेगा.
No doubt, sir. No doubt, syllabus is important, but special emphasis should be given to the learning process. If students they understand what we are saying, definitely they will learn much better. So no doubt, syllabus is our responsibility. But apart from that, we have to emphasize, we have to think how students will learn more and more from teachers.
Vallabh sir, yesterday I had taken a class at my university from 9:30 to 11. 11 o'clock when I was going back to my chambers, the program lead for the course I was teaching asked me, sir, how did your class go? You know what answer I gave him, Vallabh sir? I said, I don't know how my class went. You should ask the children, how did my class go? You see, it's not important what I think of how the class went. I know, if I'm serious, I know how my class went. But I said, more important is the children should tell you, how did my class go? How important is that fact, Vallabh sir?
Yes, sir. Sir, even their faces, students' faces also convey whether we have done our job properly or not. That is the real mark or test, I think.
Very true, sir. Whether the child is constantly watching the phone, the watch in his hand when my class is going on, or when I decide to end the class, there's a boy look at his watch and say, oh, 1 hour is over, 50 minutes is over. Now that is an important test for how well did you really make your classroom learner-centered. And now the last point in the shift from teaching to learning. Shweta ji, how is this last point important? Shweta Yadav ji or Nohi Mitai ji, either of you. What is this last point that we have there?
I can come back if you allow me.
Sir,
Sure, anybody.
Okay.
Shweta,
Okay.
let me give Shweta a chance first and then others.
Yeah, sure.
Shweta, go ahead.
Sir, it's competitive and individualistic classroom situations.
हमारे क्लास में होता है ये टीचिंग पैराडाइम में, हम प्रश्न पूछते हैं, एक बच्चा हाथ उठाता है, वो जवाब देता है, हर बार शायद उसी बच्चे के पास हम जाते हैं क्योंकि वो हर बार अच्छी जवाब देता है।
Yes, sir.
राइट, एंड इट्स कॉम्पिटिटिव इन द क्लास, किसने सही जवाब दिया, किसने गलत जवाब दिया। टीचिंग पैराडाइम में प्रिया आपको ये अनुभव हुआ है, बच्चे को आपने 8 आउट ऑफ 10 दिया, बच्चा आपके पास आता है, मैम मुझे 8 आउट ऑफ 10 क्यों दिया, 9 आउट ऑफ 10 क्यों नहीं दिया, इसको आपने 9 आउट ऑफ 10 दिया, मुझे नहीं दिया आपने, आपको मुझे भी 9 आउट ऑफ 10 देना चाहिए। बच्चे को ये नहीं चाहिए कि मुझे क्यों 8 आउट ऑफ 10 मिला, क्यों 9 आउट ऑफ 10 मिला, मेरे दोस्त को 9 आउट ऑफ 10 मिला, मुझे भी 9 आउट ऑफ 10 मिलना चाहिए। ये अनुभव हुआ है आपको प्रिया?
जी सर, सर पर्सनली भी हुआ है। मतलब
आपने
me
खुद
and
किया
my
ये,
friend-
ठीक है, अच्छी बात है, आपने खुद किया इसे, ओके। बट इसके जगह क्या मेरा क्लासरूम कोलैबोरेटिव और कोऑपरेटिव बन सकता है? हम सब एक ग्रुप में काम करें और जब ग्रुप को कोई अवार्ड या A+ या A ग्रेड मिले तो आप देखिए ग्रुप में क्या एटीट्यूड रहती है। और मैंने ये ट्राई किया है रंजू मैम, मैंने एक बार ग्रुप में एक एक्टिविटी दे के ग्रुप को ही कहा आप अपना ग्रेड दीजिए, और उस ग्रुप के हर एक मेंबर को कहा अगर ग्रुप का ग्रेड कुछ हो, आपका पर्सनल ग्रेड क्या होना चाहिए उस ग्रुप में। एंड मैम यू नो क्या हुआ, ज्यादातर बच्चों ने अपने आप को कम ग्रेड दिया, ग्रुप को ज्यादा ग्रेड दिया। जो ग्रुप को हमेशा अपने आप से 1 ग्रेड ज्यादा दिया, अपने आप को 1 ग्रेड कम दिया। अब बच्चों को पता चला कि मेरे ग्रुप को गुरु जो ग्रेड मिला है वो मुझे ज्यादा महत्व का है। किसी ने, 2 लोगों ने हाथ उठाया है, जिनको बात करना चाहते हैं प्लीज अनम्यूट करके कहिए जो आप कहना। देवेंद्र सिंह और किसी और ने हाथ उठाया, उठाइए, बोले।
जी सर, मैंने ऐसा प्रयोग किया था अपनी क्लास के अंदर कि मैंने जब उनका इंटरनल एग्जाम लिया और एग्जाम में क्वेश्चन भी स्टूडेंट के द्वारा ही बनाए गए, एक ग्रुप में क्वेश्चन बनाए, उसके बाद में उसको क्वेश्चनों को जो हमने क्लास में दिया और उसका वैल्यूशन भी उनसे कराया। तो आपने जो अभी बात कही थी, उन्होंने वैल्यूशन करते समय ध्यान में आया उनको, वास्तव में हम जो कहते हैं कि हमको मार्क्स कम मिले तो उनको ध्यान में आया कि कहाँ कमी होती है। और उसके बाद में जब मेन एग्जाम उन्होंने दिया और मैंने जनरली उनसे पूछा कि आपने जो अनुभव था उसके आधार पर आप मार्क्स बताइए, और उन्होंने जो मार्क्स मुझे बताए लगभग उसके रिजल्ट के समय वो मार्क्स उनके आए। एक बहुत अच्छा अनुभव मेरे को मिला उसमें से।
देवेंद्र सिंह जी, आपने जो कोशिश किया है उसको हम जनरली लर्निंग पैराडाइम में कहते हैं शेयरिंग द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ लर्निंग। ज्यादातर क्या होता है, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ लर्निंग हम लेते हैं
जी।
व्हाट शुड वी टीच, व्हेन शुड वी आस्क असाइनमेंट, व्हेन शुड, हाउ मेनी असाइनमेंट्स टू गिव, when should we have the test, all these decisions are taken very often by us. Now suppose we involve them in this decision making process. आप देखिए the enthusiasm, the excitement with which they take part in that activity. मैं ये काफी बार प्रयोग करता हूं सर क्लास में। हर क्लास के शुरू में मैं 5 मिनट बच्चों को देता हूं कि पिछली बार जो हमने क्लास में सीखा था उसको कौन दोहराना चाहेगा। और अभी सभी को मालूम है कि सर तो ये क्लास में करेंगे ही करेंगे, सो अलग अलग लोग हर रोज तैयार रहते हैं और मैं उसको इंटरनल असेसमेंट का एक भाग बना देता हूं। तो जिस तरह से आपने कल का क्लास समरी किया उसके लिए मैं अपने इंटरनल असेसमेंट में थोड़ा वेटेज उसको भी दूंगा। और जब मैंने देखा कि बच्चों उसमें काफी अच्छी तरह से कॉम्पीट कर रहे हैं वो समरी करने के लिए हर रोज, उसमें मेरा पिछले क्लास का समरी हो गया, पिछले क्लास का एक रिवीजन भी हो गया सभी के लिए, और मेरा कंटिन्यूएशन भी बहुत ही आसान हो गया। शिवांगी मैम, रंजू मैम।
सर, आपने कहा कि आपके क्लास के इंटरनल एग्जाम के मार्किंग में आपने डाल दिया कि बच्चे जो समराइज कर रहे थे, यू kept that as a benchmark for giving marks. What about those cases where there is no exam and there is only one semester end exam? Because abhi tak aapne jitne bhi whatever you have given the examples regarding collaborative, participative, the way teachers are giving their own personal experience. I'm from University of Mumbai, and I have tried all my level best to undertake and make my student participative. What I have found is unless they are not given the words that this will be counted in marks, they never come forward and willingly participate. And whenever I started this summarizing in my class, what I found, students used to like, today is my turn, I should not go.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, Ma'am Shivangi ma'am. This challenge will be there. But abhi, under the National Education Policy 2020, universities are being encouraged to have a very strong internal assessment component. And many universities and colleges are giving that freedom to the departments to define what will be the internal assessment pattern. So in many universities, you are giving a weightage to that factor also. I think at the end of the day, Shivangi ma'am, you're right, it takes a little time to convince the learner in the class that you are not doing something only for marks, but you're doing it for the joy of doing it. And once they see, now I have faced similar situations in my class. So I first made it voluntary. There's those who want to do it, you do it.
Sir, in case of voluntary, as you said, there will be only one student who will come and answer.
Let's
and
be more.
The class depend on that side.
In spite of COVID-19, I would encourage you to be a little positive, because I think we will have more people coming in as you started. See, there is an apprehension that people will not take part. But when there is an environment which allows people to take part, and okay, again, Shivangi ma'am, I'm making this very clear. What works for me may not work for you. And what works for you in one class may not work for you in another class. So each of us has to keep experimenting and deciding. Look at the fight you are having with your son to offer the space of your particular screen. I enjoy the fact that you are allowing him to be there, because that's very important. Because where else will you keep him on a Janmashtami holiday?
Because
he
they will
represents the
rebel.
Krishna in your life, and that Krishna has to be around you wherever you are. But the point I'm making is each of us find a way of being able to deal with this situation. Priya ma'am, Ranju ma'am, you wanted to say something. And Surjit.
I have a question, sir. I want to raise a question.
Before a question, I would like to ask Priya, Ranju and Surjit to say something, and then I'll come to you, Arambam.
Yes, मेरे इंटरनल असेसमेंट में ये होता है सर कि हम लोग इंटरनल असेसमेंट जब करवाते हैं तो हम लोग कुछ मार्क्स उनके डेली क्लास में पार्टिसिपेशन होता है उसका भी रखते हैं, और बच्चों को बोला जाता है कि अगर आप पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं तो इसका इंटरनल अगर आपका 30 मार्क्स का है तो 5 मार्क्स हम आपका डिटेक्ट करेंगे और क्लास प्रेजेंटेशन का रखेंगे। तो जब हम ये करते हैं तो सर बच्चे काफी ज्यादा पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं और काफी अच्छा रिजल्ट हमको देखने को मिलता है।
प्रिया मैम।
Sir, I just want to share my experience. I cleared my B.Ed in 2008. और सर उस टाइम पे हमारा एक B.Ed में ग्रुप होता था, उसको हम कहते थे एनरिच ग्रुप। सर वो टोटली स्टूडेंट बेस्ड ग्रुप था। जो भी अभी क्वेश्चन सारे लोग पूछ रहे हैं कि कैसे मैनेज किया जाए, मैं उस एक्सपीरियंस को शेयर करना चाहती हूँ। सर उसमें फर्स्ट डे जब हम गए थे, हमको बोला गया था ये ग्रुप आपके लिए है, आप इसमें डिसाइड करेंगे क्या पढ़ना है, आप डिसाइड करेंगे कैसे इवैल्यूएशन होगा, टोटली इज योर्स। सो सर हम लोग फर्स्ट डे हम लोग जस्ट अमेज कि ऐसे कैसे हो सकता है। there have to certain syllabus और ये तो होना ही चाहिए, but our teacher are that much skilled कि उन्होंने कहा नहीं, जो आप डिसाइड करेंगे वही हम पढ़ेंगे, कोई यहाँ सिलेबस नहीं है। एंड सर यू बिलीव हमने 6 मंथ तक सिर्फ और सिर्फ अपने हिसाब से पढ़ाई की जो हमें, बट हाँ हमारे टीचर्स गाइडलाइन देते थे और उनकी प्रूविंग स्किल इतनी अच्छी थी उनका कि हम जब भी कुछ और किसी अदर डायरेक्शन में जाते दे विल डायरेक्ट अस टुवर्ड्स द B.Ed।
एंड प्रिया मैम सिलेबस तो कंप्लीट हुआ ही हुआ, आधा समय आपने इस तरह बिताया तब भी सिलेबस कंप्लीट हो गया। right?
Yes, sir.
तो ये सिलेबस का मैं एक बहुत ही स्ट्रांग वर्ड यूज करूंगा अभी, ये सिलेबस का भूत हमारे पीछे हमेशा घूमता रहता है, ये सिलेबस कैसे कंप्लीट होगा, ये सिलेबस कैसे कंप्लीट होगा। जो प्रिया ने अभी बताया, मैंने काफी लोगों ने में देखा है कि आप वो स्वतंत्रता क्लास को दे, लोगों को दे, और वो आपकी वहां खूबी है कि उसको आप कैसे उपयोग करें, आपका जो आपका कोर्स कंटेंट है उसको कंप्लीट करने। गरिमा मैम।
Good afternoon, sir. This is Dr. Garima. Sir, I teach in Mata Sundari College. I take BLEd there. So what you're sharing today, I'm totally intrigued by the ideas. Basically, sir, I like to share that with me, I have been taking, because BLEd is a kind of course which takes a lot of internal assessment. And the fourth year is entirely based on internal assessment. So there are two things that I want to suggest. First is that from the very first year, we inculcate the habit of group work in our course. So, they know that they'll be divided in random groups, and they will have to base their, reflections on the basis of connotative learning, which is, they'll have to present something. So they choose for themselves. For example, last year, with my third year students, which is 1 year prior to the close of year, because it's a 4-year program. So in last year, what I did, we used the notice boards of the entire corridor. So we had around like 5-6 notice boards that divided themselves in the groups. They took one notice board and they wanted to talk about one aspect of education, whatever they can choose. For example, they chose NEP 2020 and the difference between NEP 1986 and 2020, and how they are, what are the aspects that are missing in NEP 2020. They reflected this much also. And they presented it with they use the technology also. They were putting up the QR codes on the notice board, so that if one is wanting to understand something else, because notice board is limited, it has limited space of presentation. So they were doing that, and they were not doing it for marks. It was the entire task was done for, like, it took me 3 months to it's a process. It takes time to close a task.
Thank you
it
so
does
much,
not
Garima
happen
ma'am. I'll just add 2 points to this. One, Mridula ji has raised the point in the chat box. If students are not enthusiastic, how do we get them to be enthusiastic?
Sir, my input would be that from the very first year, the structure of the course is that they know that they will have to work in groups. So individual assignments are less, group assignments are more. So in that case, what happens that the interaction, peer learning, all these things, they start from the starting point itself. So, that is where I think the change comes. One, that. Second, that they know that, it is all about how they are able to present themselves in the learning form.
And
so
Garima ji, I also think we as facilitators can actually create that environment where that enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
If we are enthusiastic, that enthusiasm can be very, very contagious.
Absolutely.
And that contagious enthusiasm, you don't know how it spreads, where all it spreads, and how it demonstrates
we
itself
in the college,
in
like till 5 or 6 we work, and children also. I absolutely agree with you that children and students and all of them, they actually gather this enthusiasm, and all of us are working like that.
And Garima ma'am, let me share with you a small reform that we are doing in JLU with the NEP now. We are making our core courses all 6 credit courses.
Okay.
Of which 2 credits is practicum. You see?
Great.
Every subject, social science, management, everywhere. You have 6 credit core courses, of which 4 are taught or discussed in the class. And based on that, a group of students choose a practicum, and we list out in the syllabus a series of practicums which they can choose from. And we have also said you can go beyond that choice. You don't need to limit yourself to that choice. So therefore, we are also trying to bring in that practical element, and then students have an opportunity to demonstrate that practicum in whichever.
Thank you so much for bringing in this word, sir. The practicum, that is important.
Yeah. Okay. We also have somebody else who put up their hand. I'm not able to know. Surjit Kaur ji. there is somebody who says peer teaching was tried and it worked out very effectively. There was one more colleague who put up his hand to say something. I did not give him a chance then. I said I will give all the others a chance. If he wants to say something now, please go ahead. The colleague who had sought permission a little while ago to say something. Now? Okay. Friends, I thought this discussion we have started now, Arambam, you wanted to say something. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a short comment, sir.
Yes.
When we are talking about, stopping students from not becoming crazy for marks, I think we need to also talk about the structural problems that we have in India. For example, when in terms of recruiting for any profession, you actually keep, higher marks as a ground for, preference. So I think unless we actually rework on this idea of, students being forced to bring good marks.
Right.
I think that's one fundamental.
Arambam, can I just add a point to that?
Yeah.
And people can correct me if I'm wrong. When I talk to those who come to campuses for recruitment, what I increasingly find is recruiters are not going by the marks that boys and girls get as part of the course. There may be, of course, a threshold which a student needs to cross in order to be selected for a recruitment process. But many recruiters have told me that we do not go by the marks, and many recruiters have told me that we actually look for those boys and girls who have crossed a threshold, but then we are more looking at the practicality of their learning as expressed in the interaction that we have with them. And I know top industry and top law firms have made this point that some of the best performers we have had in our institutions, in our organizations, are not necessarily your gold medalists and your toppers, but those who crossed a threshold but demonstrated other skills which made them effective at the workplace. So we in our institutions, I'm not saying that we say marks are not important, but we tell them that we measure what matters. We measure at the end of the day what matters. I think if that message can go across from faculty to students in a very, very proper manner, and if they experience this as part of the recruitment process, I think a lot of that would be resolved. But Arambam, I think that's an important point you make, and we need to budget that as part of any discussion. Thank you for bringing up that very important point. Any other point, Arambam, you wanted to make other than that?
I just wanted to share with all the STEM members present at the refresher course. I have a recent experience which is, I think, significant for all of us to talk about. For example, when we are trying to engage students in the classroom, particularly in the areas where students are not so active, and it was fascinating to also listen to one madam from Mumbai University who spoke about the problems that she faces in the university classrooms where students are not really proactive. And I think belonging to Manipur, we also have similar kind of problems in many universities and colleges in the periphery particularly.
Right.
So now it is very difficult for students to speak up, to make them speak up, to make them ask questions. So normally I try to influence them to raise questions instead of telling them to as you rightly started by saying that it's not about teaching, it's more about learning. So I normally begin by quoting Socrates when he said, and it's very interesting for all of us to remember it again. Socrates says, I quote, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing," unquote. So this fundamental point has to be remembered and must be told to the students that you need to have a desire to ask questions. So what I did was recently, instead of teaching them, I asked them to come with 20 questions on a given topic, on any given topic. And they did bring 20 questions along with them. And that was actually a very turning point for them because that made them speak up what they feel about their life was and the subject they're studying. Thank you. This is a very important point I felt about.
Thank you so much, Arambam, for that point. Now, I think what has been told to us helps us move into what we were planning to do next. Tanya, Surjit, I had come to you that time, possibly you were not there, but I'll come back to both of you in 15 minutes time, because in the next 15 minutes now, I'm going to break everybody into 5 groups, randomly into 5 groups. And what does each of these 5 groups do for 10 to 15 minutes? Each of the 5 groups will discuss within themselves what has been one innovation to bring in student participation that I have tried in my classroom. And we will collectively discuss those innovations for 15 minutes and choose one innovation which we will present to everybody and discuss it with everybody later. So 15 minutes of group work where we discuss innovations all of us have practiced and choose one innovation. Whosever innovation it was, that person can present it or somebody else can present it. You will have 4 minutes to make a presentation before everybody else. And then we will continue this discussion as those presentations are made. So I'm breaking everybody into 5 groups now. And all these 5 groups will work for around 15 minutes to take this forward. So I'm creating the groups now. And Devanshu, at this stage, if you can make me the host, it makes it easy for me to go around to the groups.
Sure, sir. I'll make you the host rights, and shall I divide them into the 5 breakout rooms?
Sorry?
So shall I divide them in 5?
I've already done it. I'm opening up the rooms now. I'm opening up all the rooms now. Now the fun starts. Those who have not gone to rooms have gone away somewhere. बालचंद्र जी, आप ग्रुप में नहीं गए अपने?
सर मैं किस ग्रुप में हूँ?
आपको किसी एक ग्रुप में डाला होगा हमने, देख लीजिए। आप ग्रुप को ज्वाइन कर दीजिए सर, जिस ग्रुप में आप हैं।
Hello? Hello?
हेलो
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ जी, शायद मेरा अपना ही हाथ बच गया था। तो फिर मैंने उनको ये एक सजेशन दी कि ये अपने लिए करे हो, कि ये आपके पास बहुत अच्छी ऑप्शन है। तो उनको मोटिवेट किया, तो फिर उन्होंने जो भी काम अच्छा शुरू कर दिया। पेपर तो उन्होंने नकल मार के ही दिए, लेकिन फिर भी जो उनके मतलब अचानक क्वेश्चन करती थी, अचानक पूछती थी, उनको मुझे अच्छा रिस्पॉन्स मिला।
Sujit ma'am, thank you. We are all came back to the main room. So
Yes, sir. Okay.
It's wonderful to see everybody back here. Maybe you thought it would be better to remain in your groups for some more time, because there was a great discussion going on in each of the 5 groups. And thank you for that. I think among all of you, I was the only one privileged to go to all the 5 groups. I spent a few minutes in every group, and I was fascinated with the way the dialogue went on in each group. So Divanshu, next time you need to give me both the sessions to make it much longer and more interactive. I think we should have given more time to the group work. Okay, let's go to whom. Do we start in reverse or do we start in the right order? Do we start with 1 or start with 6?
We'll start with 1 only.
Okay, start with 1. So let's go to group 1. Whoever is the spokesperson for group 1, please take 3 to 4 minutes to summarize what was that important point the group made with regard to innovation in the classroom. Any representative from group 1?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I am Dr. Shruti Nadkarni from GR Kare College of Law, Margao, Goa. On behalf of my group 1, I would like to share the ideas suggested by some of the group members. And we have shortlisted these 2 ideas as the innovation which we would like to speak about today. The first one is role play of case studies, wherein the students are students are required to replicate the parties in a particular case, and they enact the entire cases in the classroom so that they can understand the cases better and the concepts behind the cases also better. So that's role play to enact the case studies, cases, various law cases in the classroom. That is one of the innovation that we would like to present before you. And the second is flipped classroom method that is used in the classes, wherein the students complete the reading at home first before the concepts are discussed in the class, and thereafter they are completed in the class. The main purpose of both these flipped classroom as well as the role play of the case study is that the students by themselves tries to understand the concept better, rather than teacher telling them the concept and then they only reading them at the time of exam and by hearting them and reproducing it in the class. These 2 methods, I feel, make them understand the concept better for themselves, and then they come and they try to explain it to the class, and then thereafter teacher tries to make them, if they do not understand a particular part or if they have missed out something, teacher tries to supplements to it. So the role of teacher here is as of a supplementing the concept which the students has already understood. Now in this process, I also feel that it is not only the students, sometimes as teachers, we also get to learn many things from the students, because the age that we are dealing with, the students that we deal in, they are very, you can say, tech savvy generation, and they also have different perceptions of the various laws, which we may not have learned during our times, or we may not have understood. So when they try to interpret certain things, they try to interpret in their own way, rather than we telling them and they accepting it. They interpret certain things which I have experienced myself. Then we are taken aback. I never thought about this point, and it could be interpreted in this way. It has happened to me many times. So their interpretations, it's fun to watch at times, that how they understand themselves, and then they present it to the class, and we also get to learn many things from that. So the purpose of these two innovation method is that the students understand for themselves, and we supplement to it rather than teach them, because as you said very rightly, so this is not the age of teaching something, this is the age of learning. So they learn, and we also learn in the bargain. So it's a learning process in the class by these two methods of innovation. That is what I would like to.
Shruti ma'am, I think I must applaud your whole group for the wonderful work you all have done. And I think the two examples you have come up with are just wonderful. Role play. I must, of course, add a word of caution. As a faculty, I have to carefully calibrate for a particular paper that I'm teaching, which is the most appropriate methods to use and for which topics. Role play is amenable for certain topics very well. You can use role play to explain something which otherwise could take around 3 lectures to complete. You could do it in 20 minutes through a role play. Shaili is here. I remember in Shaili's class last year, research methodology class, I discussed observation as a research method through role play. Observation as a research method we discussed through role play. So Shaili, would you like to take a minute to talk about it? What did you do?
We were divided into groups, and we had been shown different visuals, and we needed to comment on that. And it was a team effort, and all of our classmates came up with different perspectives. Same image, but perspectives were very different. And there were 3 images.
And if you remember, Shaili, before that, 4 of you sat on the stage as if it was an actual classroom happening.
Yes, sir.
And each of you played a role. Remember
yes,
that?
Sir. Yes, sir.
I made all 4 of them on stage play a different role. One of a mischievous student, one of a serious student,
and others had to guess what we were doing.
But nobody knew what that role was. Only they knew.
Yes.
And they had to act it out so well. And then the rest of the class had to guess what is it that these people are doing. And at the end, it became so easy to discuss observation as a method of research. So role play, yes, but then Shruti, as you said, it has to be very carefully calibrated. If you don't plan it properly, that role play can land up on your face.
Yes.
And it can be disastrous in some situations. And the second point you made, flipped classrooms, undoubtedly. As you said, the student becoming the teacher and the teacher becoming the student, you see. And as you very rightly said, sometimes when they come up with a interpretation, you wonder why you did not think of that. Why is it all this while you never thought that that could be something done? But now let me make the most important point before I go to group 2. You know what our biggest challenge is? We don't document these innovations.
Yes.
Whatever innovations we practice in our classrooms, sometimes at the end of a semester, we ourselves forget some of those innovations that we tried out. I think one thing that Western universities are extremely strong at is documenting what they do. And I would encourage everybody to do this documenting of sharing that. You see, I have encouraged in my university that every month faculty should get together in a department and share an innovation that they practiced that month. So that somebody else can say, yes, let me also try this out and maybe take it one step forward. So can we document these things more effectively? That's one request I have of everybody.
Yes.
Any quick comment from anybody about what group 1 said before we move to group 2? Anybody would like to make a quick comment? Anybody else from group 1 who would like to share a point which possibly because of paucity of time, Shruti ma'am did not say?
This role play method was suggested by Dr. Radha Rani ma'am, so she could say something
Radha
more
Rani
about
ma'am,
it.
if you want a minute to discuss that, you have a minute's time.
Sir, as you thank you, sir. As you rightly said that we can't use every method in all the topics. We have to select what method is applicable. So like I said, when I taught Companies Act, then I use this role play method to teach students what is the role of shareholders and directors. And one important, very interesting topic, that is companies meeting. How agenda is prepared, how meeting goes on, electing a chairperson, and then recording the minutes of meeting and how we close the meeting. It is very interesting activity that we can teach students by a role play method.
And Radha ma'am, you'll notice this most quiet, silent student, you make him or her the chairperson of the board. Suddenly that person comes alive and you wondered, where was this person till now in your classroom? But you gave her or you gave him that role to play. And then after that class, that student realizes that I'm capable of this, and then you see a transformation in the way he or she behaves in the rest of the sessions. That one small trigger is necessary to be able to make him or her actually come forward and do and actually bring their latent talent out in the classroom. Thank you so much, Radha Rani ma'am.
So for this we also do the youth parliament. Youth parliament, sir.
Okay.
We do conduct the youth parliament, and the students really come up.
Sure.
Yeah, they come
up. So now let's
yeah.
Close discussion on group 1 and go to group 2. Would the representative of group 2 like to tell all of us what was the innovation? Yes, Arambam.
I think, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Arambam Noni. You can call me Noni. Arambam is my surname, so Noni is my name. Thank you for the chance. We had a very interesting and creative kind of an engagement within the group. So before we come to the proposal that our group is going to place before you, we would like to introduce to some of the basic fundamental problems that come about when we were talking about these questions. One was, our one madam from Mumbai raised about the significant problem in terms of social diversity in a classroom or in an institution. So one has to take into account of the social diversity that we encounter in a classroom. Next point, we also came about a lot of issues concerning rural and urban divide. When we talk about digital divide, we also continuously need to talk about rural and urban divide. So if you go to rural areas, learning and teaching has become very difficult due to certain factors, economic factors as well as linguistic factors. So NEP is a very good clue to say that teaching in mother tongue is very, very important. So that part has to be taken into account. And the other point that we talk about was teaching and learning process is a process that deals with socializing a classroom as well as the society. So when we are talking to the students in a classroom, we are constantly trying to socialize them, and not only socialize them, but also making them sensitive about cultures, identities, and also democratic values. That is very important in the group that we talked about. The other point that we raised was the significant aspect of students not being able to raise questions on the issues and topics on the syllabus questions that we normally engage in a classroom. So we wanted students to make and raise questions, not in the conventional design of rote learning. So questioning and making the students raise questions was a very important concern that the group flagged on. The other point was to come back to the first presentation given by the first group. We did talk about free classroom system. We did talk about engaging students to field work. So the precise point that we came to conclude was to suggest that one of the innovative designs to start making students learn more could be to say, now I come to the point, that is to just read out the conclusion that the group arrived at was, we suggest that there should be a learning process that focuses on peer group case study method. I repeat, we suggest peer group case study method to enable to understand the urban-rural divide, to enable to understand the social diversity, to enable to contextualize cultural questions, and to enable the students to learn in peer groups and to know each other and to frame their own questions instead of completely making them dependent on marks and syllabi. These were the issues that came about in the group, and we finally suggest the House to consider peer group case study method as an innovative way of engaging in the classroom. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noni. Dr. Noni, I must mention a small point, which is in many South Indian languages, your surname, Arambam, actually means beginning. It actually means the beginning. This is a word we use in Kannada, Tamil, Telugu to show starting. So in a sense, that name resonates with all of us. And in that sense, Noni has been somebody today who has started off new ways of thinking within the group. And therefore,
we have a connection, sir. We have a connection.
Yeah. I think the group made a great point. How we can use our classrooms to help our learners be sensitive to diversity, social diversity, cultural diversity, economic diversity. How mother tongue is critical, undoubtedly. I've often felt that some of our best ideas come up when we talk in the language we heard our parents talk in and we were first socialized in. So yes, I think that's extremely important. And what the group said about fieldwork involving peer group case study method, I think there could be no better way for our young learners to be exposed to the reality that is around them. I have found on so many occasions that when we have done peer group case study, my class groups have understood issues not just about the subject, because I often say this, higher education is not for just earning a living. Higher education is about the messages of life that all of us internalize. And I think peer group learning and peer group case study is one way by which you are exposed, sensitized to the diversity that is around you, and you learn to respect that diversity. Noni, I've often said, we don't need to accommodate diversity. I think accommodate is a very limited word. We need to celebrate diversity. And we can celebrate diversity only when you can understand that diversity effectively. And one way we allow our students to celebrate diversity is by getting them to work in a group where they not only relate to the task given to them, but relate to each other more effectively in the process. Thank you for that very important intervention, Group 2. Any other point on what Group 2 said before we move to Group 3?
Our group members can speak up now, please.
Yeah, we still have a few minutes for the remaining members of the group. Priya, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So, sir, I just want to share my own experience with the peer learning. I taught in a class, and there is one girl, she is slow learner, and the other member of the class, they will help her and they make him sit and understand the process, and they help in writing the assignments and all. So I make them understand that you should give them help. At the same time, I told the person also, you should thankful to your peer. They will give you that kind of support. You have to be thankful to them. So these kind of things I experience in my class.
Priya ma'am, I may be being unconventional when I say this. A slow learner is somebody who is slow because of a methodology that I have adopted in the class. If I adapt my methodology to what he or she is good at, that slow learner will become a very fast-paced learner. If you go by the multiple intelligence framework which came up, that multiple intelligence framework says everybody is intelligent, but intelligent in different ways. And I think our skill as a faculty lies in tapping the best potential that is there in each boy or girl and allowing that potential to come up. And that's what Howard Gardner wanted to say as part of multiple intelligence. Can we recognize that? And then your slow learner who looks slow in a particular way that I teach, or the particular way that I expect him or her to learn, when we expose them to multiple ways of learning, they actually could do much better than many others in the classroom. So let's also look at that dimension of the whole learning process. Anybody else? Okay, we also need to keep an eye on the watch. So can we go to group 3? Can we have group 3 making its presentation? Smriti, go ahead.
Yes, sir. We listed out all the methods which have been beneficial in our individual teaching classes. And I'm presenting my screen for the same. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yeah, so we discussed that one of our group members is revising previous day's work, as you have mentioned in the session before. It helped revising the work as well and coming up with new things, that how much people are paying attention in the classes. Another was role playing, because it focuses on the practical part, which we already have discussed. Next is identifying students which have understood the topic very well and asking them to reteach in the class. This emphasizes the learning and revision for the students who could not keep up with the pace. Next is brainstorming, as one of our members put forward that if he's teaching literature, he keeps asking students like why poet is speaking this way. So they come up with very new and interesting opinions of their own. Next is involving games. For example, to check the vocabulary or enhancing their vocabularies. Next innovative method was thinking and pairing. This involved discussions over each topic. Next method which came up was flipped class learning. That is asking students to teach through different methods and also providing reading material beforehand. So they have a deeper understanding. And everybody reads at their own pace. Nobody comes out to be a slow learner. Next is group activity, or we can call it role reversal, or taking charge or ice-breaking sessions in between teaching, so that they brainstorm individually and in the group and then come up with their own methods. Another method which we came up with was debates, like who supports this argument and who doesn't. They automatically divide themselves into teams and support their arguments, this emphasizing their expressions and their methods. Next is some teachers in our group give time to collect information through Google there and there itself, and then ask that what did you explore through different methods, explain that. Next innovative method was sending reading material beforehand and then knowing their points, and role plays on case laws in respect to law. So these were the methods that we came up during discussion. Yeah.
So you're
Thank you, Smriti. This is exactly what we were saying about documenting. What Smriti has done is, so that we don't forget what all the groups said, she has put it on a set of slides. I would encourage other groups also to not do it in slides now, but prepare a note and circulate it to everybody so that all of us has an idea of what other groups came up with. I would just make one small comment on what the group suggested. Wonderful activities, wonderful activities. But one small unconscious challenge which sometimes we face is blending that activity into the larger learning that is going on in the classroom. I'll give you an example for this. I had a student of mine who was very excited about an innovation she's going to do in the classroom. So she invited me to her class, and Students were very excited about the innovation because they said today is something different going to happen. So I was there in the class when she started her innovation. It was a brilliant innovation, brilliant innovation. I've never seen so much energy in the class among the students. And then what happened? My colleague said to the class, students, activity over, now class will begin. And there went everything for a toss. I asked her afterwards, Nandana, what was that? Activity over, now class will begin. Was activity like some tamasha that you did and then got everybody excited and then started the class? Should not it have been such that your students did not know that activity has ended and the subject discussion is continuing? That seamless transition. Now, this is a big challenge in activity-based learning. How do you get your students to understand the connect between the activity and what you're doing in the class? The debriefing that you do at the end of an activity to get them to understand why this particular activity is being done in terms of the larger, wider issue of the class. Okay. Any other point from anybody else or any comment on what group 3 told us? Bilgi ma'am, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say that there, when we have a set of students, we have just like a diversity. We also have linguistic diversity among the students, and then we have the kinetics, how they take the learning process, what is given to them, whether it's a full cup filled of already a knowledge, or it's an empty cup that I'm filling, or whether I'm filling a particular person who is doesn't know what is being told to him. So when I have to identify these students, and I think that the class should begin with a weak learner's point of view. But at the same time, I have to control the speed of my class so that the quick learner does not lose his what you call as interest in the class, sir. To retain his interest also, I have to maintain this fine balance between slow learners to take them along. All should be coming along with the class, right? And then last 10 minutes, I ask them whether they have understood, and ask them to just go home, refer to any type of source which they want, and come back with any doubts tomorrow. And I give 10 minutes for clarifying the doubts in the next class, and then again continue the next thing.
Excellent.
That would, yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for giving me an opportunity.
Can we go to group 4 now? All our 3 groups till now have done a wonderful job.
Sir, just give me 1 minute, sir. Sir, please give me just 1 minute.
Yeah, Vallabhji, go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, I was just brainstorming.
Is it only I that I can't hear, Vallabhji, or everybody is not able to hear?
Brainstorm learning. If he focuses, that definitely that will enhance the understanding of the students.
Vallabh
sir, could you just repeat the initial point? We missed out what you said initially.
Yes, sir. Vallabh sir, if we can request you, if you can just turn down your video and just speak, I guess that would be better. We will be audible, sir.
I was talking about, sir, brainstorming and focused learning. Whatever may be the faculty or whatever may be the subject of the teacher, if he uses this technique, definitely that topic will become interesting, and that will enhance the understanding of the students. And so I personally feel that if we want to make our classes interesting, this brainstorming or focused learning plays a very crucial role. And even I have noticed one limitation also, sir, in case of larger classes, because of the concentration of the students and because of the huge strength of the students, sometimes very difficult to students to play comparatively in smaller classes. Therefore, when we conduct activity like role playing in a larger class, we must take special precaution. We should think about the topic which will suit the class, where we will get a suitable response from the students.
Very true, Vallabhji. In fact, the activity-based learning involves much more preparation on the parts of the faculty prior to the class, because you need to anticipate different things before you actually go into the classroom. Wonderfully said. Can we go to group 4, please?
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Tanaya Kamlakar. I'm from Mumbai University. So, sir, we have started, like, we have written down certain methods wherein we've started from the basic and then reaching to the, like we said, that ensuring that each and one first of all participates, and then we go to the brainstorming sessions and so on. So the first idea is to give basic confidence to the students. How that can be done is just like how sir just said, that we introduce some common topic of discussion in the class, wherein each and every student will be given an opportunity to express his opinion first. Because we are, as we know, that we are living in the era of social media, wherein everyone is very much interested to give their opinion first. So the way we can make them first open up is to let them give their opinions, and thereafter maybe there might be some linguistic barriers when they do this, appreciating the linguistic barriers and letting them express in their own mother tongue, or rather just firstly appreciating or giving them a platform to speak up is the first step that we wish to do. Second point is that we go for the role playing, like just has been discussed in previous groups. The next thing we can do is go for a brainstorming session. So we firstly initially began with the very basic notion of letting them speak. Thereafter, we made them act, and thereafter we can go to the brainstorming sessions, wherein we then come up with some intense discussions in the class, wherein each and everyone can come and participate, and then they can, basically it goes in the layers. First you focus on an individual, and then you start going towards the group. And then one of our members also suggested game-based learning in the class. This can very well be executed in the primary and the secondary learning courses. Thereafter, she also said that moving around in the class when the discussions are going on of the teacher can also encourage more and more participation from students, because they are aware that they are being observed. Because we see that these days students, they do sit with the mobile phones with some or the other amount of distractions for sure. That might be some random message that might pop up on their screens, wherein they could lose their concentration and they could go somewhere else in the class. But then when the class teacher is moving around the class, it ensures that it more of gives like a personal attention to each and every student in the class. Thereafter, we also came up with an experimental learning. One of our members suggested for an experimental learning. I would more like, since I'm into a law faculty, I would rather say that we give them the case studies to study, and then not just explain the case in the class, but come up with the pitfalls or the shortcomings of the case, or how what other perspectives could have been added to that particular interpretation. So, sir, I would first of all thank you for giving this opportunity, and I would rather say that you have just converted this entire meeting into a family, trying to encourage and motivate each other to grow better. Thank you so much.
That's what we are. That's what we all
Yes,
are. I enjoyed the point you made about how faculty moves and does not maintain that distance in the classroom. The only word of precaution there is how we move is equally important. It should not be seen like a lion strutting around the room, but as a friend moving around the room, because the moment it is seen as a lion doing his or her pace, or lioness doing her pace around, then there is a sense of fear that is there in the minds of the child looking at you going around. So I think the body language of a teacher, the response of a teacher, the attitude of a teacher, maybe the previous experience with that teacher plays a role on how do these students perceive that whole process of the teacher moving around. But that's a great idea. With this, let's go to the last group. We are also running out of time. We will go to the last group, and then I'll give Kumud ma'am a chance also to say something.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Shelly Agrawal, research scholar in law from JLU. So I had this privileged opportunity to be among so many teachers from different parts of India, and our group is really a diverse one. One teacher is from South India and one teacher is from the village of Punjab, and I try to be bilingual. First, I would like to share all the points which were discussed. So to give the heading, it's like we discussed, it is the constructivist classroom learning. So in that, we have discussed that there should be creative pedagogy, in that students should not only learn what teacher is teaching or just mug up, they should reflect on what is being taught in the class, so that they have their own inputs. And one of the teachers said that when students ask questions, teachers also learn from them, and it's a co-learning. So not just one way, it's a two-way thing. Next, somebody discussed that teachers should encourage more and more students to participate and ensure that everybody is in the class with them. So the teacher said that they always do the revision, what was done in the last class, and they always encourage the below average student to revise the points and write on the board and explain the class whatever they have understood from the last class. And then the current news topic can be taken, like teachers said that they discuss what was in the news currently in the field of law, a case or something, and they want students to have their own views and have a open-ended discussion regarding that. And to encourage more participation, there should be debates, like the topic difference strengths and weaknesses of qualitative or quantitative methods. So which is good, which is better, and like we all know, in different fields different methods apply. So it makes learning more practical and easy. Next, as it was already discussed, but I would like to lay stress on this, the role plays regarding the case laws, which encourages the reflective thinking. And lastly, the teacher from Punjab, this is a very interesting one because she takes classes in villages and there is non-participation of students. So to encourage more and more students to participate, she has this innovative idea of telling stories with real life examples. So she has told many stories which has reached out to the students, and it has resulted in more and more students participating in the class and attending her class. So I would like my team members, my esteemed teachers, to take this forward if they want to make any more points. So yeah, thank you.
Shaili, I think the last point you made about what our colleague from Punjab has done.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure Divakarji will be talking about this in a future session. Storytelling as a method of learning is truly phenomenal. Yes, I have known of students who 30 years after the class remember a episode you quoted in the class and would tell you how that has helped them understand their own subject much better.
No, not to overquote or something, but I remember most of the stories you have shared with us. So I remember the topic with the stories. So whatever we have been taught, I remember the story first and the topic later. So that's how we have also learned.
Thank God you remember the topic also and not just the story. Okay. Kumudji, you had raised your hand before we close. Kumudji, you wanted to say something.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, please?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Just now, actually, I got this point because I'm a law teacher in family law and issues relating to exactly Muslim law. So sometimes it happens in my class that I start with the movie. Exactly, I think so. You must all have seen the movie Nikah. Nikah, the movie.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, you are. Good.
I relate to that movie, and when I teach with exactly the methods of divorce, there is one of the method exactly which was shown in this movie, Talaq ul-Biddat, which is now, of course, not in an issue. And secondly, I wanted to raise this point that when I'm a teacher from Government Law College, Bikaner, which is exactly in Rajasthan, we go for moot court competitions, like relating to the case study and the leading cases, so that the students are aware with the procedure law and the substantive law. And it's a must in BCI also. Then they go for the memorials also. So we are exactly what happens when we go for the memorials. We are in a way, we can be very confident, and the nervousness also goes out. And we, in the inter-college competition, we are in a level we start with. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, Kumudji. Let me compliment each and every one of you for having made this session so lively, so active, so interactive, and personally for me, so informative. Let me close by raising one issue only. When I do activity-based learning in my class, when I try to ensure 50% student talk in my class, just keep 4 rules in mind. Number 1, variety. Don't overuse a technique. Don't overuse a methodology. Use variety in terms of the methodologies you use. Secondly, think about relevance. is this method relevant for what I'm talking, what we said about role play? That is role play relevant for that particular method? Number 3, timing. When do I use that method as part of the class? Beginning, middle, end, after the discussion, before a discussion? What is the best timing for a method? And lastly, and this is the most important for me, do I do adequate preparation that that method is effective in the classroom? Because there's a lot of preparation I need to do before I go into the class to make sure a method is effective. Sometimes a method falls flat in the face because I was not adequately prepared to take that method forward. So for me, friends, 4 points: variety, relevance, timing, and preparation. All 4 are critical to be able to make learner-centered teaching more effective in terms of the activities I use. So over to you, Angmungla, and sorry for having taken 3 minutes more.
That's totally fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much. I guess I hope everybody remember that at the beginning of the session, I made one statement that it has always been so much fun-filled and at the same time informative session with you, sir. And at the end of your session, I guess, and not guess, I'm 100% sure that all the participants present here will totally resonate with the statement which I've made at the beginning of the session, sir. So before I end today's session, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Professor Dr. Sandeep Shastri for taking out time amidst his busy schedule and sharing his knowledge and experience with us. And I would also like to acknowledge all the participants, as your participation has made this session a successful one. Wish you all a happy learning ahead. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Sandeep sir, for making this session.
Thank you, sir.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you, Angula ma'am, for wonderfully moderating this session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
All the participants, the feedback form would be shared to you shortly. And then we will join tomorrow at 2:30 for day 4, session 1. Thank you. Have a very great day. And
Hello.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Devanshu sir. Sir, I most of the time try to log in and it is showing that it is either logged or it is already filled up. And then I have to use the YouTube. And in YouTube, I don't know how to question and how to. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so in that, what do I do? I can't
many of
communicate
us
with
are facing that
anyone.